to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello, and welcome back to the What the Fox podcast with your hosts, Lindsey Fox and Amber Ross. Today, we have our Ode to Mother's Day episode, and we are truly fortunate to have an incredible guest with us that Lindsey's going to introduce.
That's right. Hello, everyone. Today we are welcoming Adrian Wood. And in case that name doesn't sound too familiar off the top of your head, I guarantee her blog does. So her blog or vlog, depending on which one you follow, because she has about 300,000 followers, is called The Tales of the Educated Debutante. So Adrian, welcome to What the Fox.
Thank you for having me. What a treat.
Yes, we are thrilled to have you here. And so, a big part of choosing not just Mother's Day to have you on, but having you on during the month of May is because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And if there is one thing that Amber and I really appreciate about your blog, it is the fact that you do raise awareness about mental health conditions that include, but are not limited to, autism. And this is a very important condition that I feel like so many people are not aware of until it happens to them, until they meet someone or have someone in their family or their immediate sphere of influence that it affects.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely would agree. I think that's really what drove me to start writing. I thought, either I haven't been listening or people haven't been talking. And there was probably a little of both.
I was going to say probably both. Probably
100%. Yes. And actually, I was sharing a little bit before we started recording that I'm fangirling a little bit over here because I found Adrian many, many moons ago when I was nannying for a family who had two children that had special needs. And I found Adrian online and started learning all of the things about autism, all of the things about being a healthy part of that family and being able to be there for them support wise. And just, Adrian, I wanted to tell you, like, the information you share was so critical for me to be a positive experience in their lives for the time period that I was with them as their nanny. And I still keep in touch. They're doing amazing. And just, I want to say thank you, because if you think that people are not reading and learning from what you share, you are so wrong, my friend. And please do not stop sharing.
Oh, well, thank you. That really is. That's exactly why I want to share for that very reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly feel that Amber is just one of so many different lives that you've touched. And I feel like typical of being a mom, we don't typically give ourselves enough credit. And I just feel like this is the time, especially around Mother's Day, where it's like, where you deserve credit where credit is due, Mom. You have been a super mom, not only momming your own kids, which, by the way, Adrian has 4 children, and with her youngest having autism, but just the fact that you still create time in your life to educate and inspire others and to teach people what it's like to become a part of this different type of world that a lot of people don't know about, and how to support these young individuals who are trying to just sort through their version of life and their perspective of things.
Yeah, that is exactly it. And, not just, the autism bit, but just that life in general. I mean, it is funny. I mean, and it's like, we all need support and need each other. And I want you to look at me and have my inside reflect my outside, not like everything's perfect, I'm fine. And then because that'll make other people feel like, well, SHIT, yeah. Why am I so unable to do things? And she's got it all together, like we've got to help each other and be honest. I mean, it's okay.
That honesty thing, right? That honesty thing is a kicker for so many people. Because I think given the fact that most of your followers are on Facebook, Amber and I do joke about how we kind of like knock social media a little bit on this podcast.
It's true.
Which is sort of funny because I feel like we knock it for the reason of it presents this false reality to people. We knock it because it seems like everyone's living a better life than we are, and no one else is struggling. We're in like this silo of like depression or anxiety.
So true.
And so what I love about your blog and the video vlogs that you do on Facebook especially is the fact that you just keep it so freaking real.
Yes.
And there is no faking it. You have no problem saying, no, you know what? I'm giving my kids cereal and chicken nuggets for dinner. Like,
Right.
Hey, we all do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need them to eat without a fight.
But
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just I feel like there's so many different labels that we're supposed to fit into, and it's just I appreciate so much that you've had a beautiful way of just normalizing what real life looks like, and especially for moms, and making moms feel like you know what, it's just sometimes you have hard days, and sometimes it's just shit happens, you know. Just normalizing it is such a big part whenever we think about mental health. Everything, frankly.
Right. Yeah. And I think, what I found is that because truth telling, if you're going to tell the truth, you have to do it when things are hard too, right? Not just, and it seems like when things get really tough around here, we are always doing kind of medicine changes. So we might have a lot of behavior issues, and it's hard to talk about those things. It's just hard. And so as I push through and I talk about it, it doesn't own me anymore.
That's right.
It's like, so I'm sort of free of that personal, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's really brought joy back into my life from that truth telling.
Yes.
So when people say, well, great for you, but I'm really private, I will say, I get it, but I'm just going to tell you, it will make your life better.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, because you're not holding up like some fake persona, and you're not pretending to be something. It's exhausting. Like right. I look out, and Lindsey and I've talked about this a million times, that the carefully curated, perfect social media pages are incredibly aesthetically pleasing. Like you look at that and you're like, yes, this makes my brain happy. Everything is so orderly. But then in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, yeah, but where's the real stuff? Where's like the real life? Where's the outtakes? And I'm a huge proponent for sharing those outtakes, because as a mom, Adrian, you will know this. And as a dog mom, Lindsey, you will know this. It probably takes 102 pictures to get one good picture if there are children involved. Or a dog, like, and God forbid you put a children and a dog in one picture, like you're probably at 200, but just being able to see that real side of it, and being able to see the reality of motherhood, of life, of just existing is very refreshing.
Sure. And I think another part of this, though, what I'm hearing you comment on, Adrian, is just the fact that we've kind of talked about this in prior episodes, but this idea of name it to tame it. Once you have a label to kind of associate with what's going on, so many times we want to just sort of stay quiet in our own little family dynamic, or just between, me and my spouse or whatever, and keep it to ourselves. And that's just it. It's that silence is really the deadly killer for so many people in different realms of mental health, regardless of what it is, in the sense that you allow it to steal your joy, you allow it to hijack your emotional experience and what your lived experience is. So when you come out into the world and you are open, honest, your most authentic self, you don't have to worry about that shit anymore. It's just out there. So you take your power back through truth telling. And I feel like that is what is so empowering about what you do and put out into the world with your blog, to be honest. It's just a matter of kind of getting your power back, of saying, you know what, it is really hard to have a child with autism, and I'm doing the best that I can. And, some days are better than others. And I think by kind of talking about some of the challenges, while hard, you also learn you're not alone in the process.
True. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah. I was just sorry. I digress.
That's okay.
You were so Instagram is that place for me where you were saying everything looks perfect. But then I'm like a glutton, right? I go back to it and I'm like, this person, like, how do they look alike? Like, where does she get the clothes? And I can't get it. And then I'm kind of evil. I'm like, well, wait till they're big. Then they're going to look terrible. My children used to look good. But one day there was a person and they had their refrigerator and they had these plastic bins in their fridge and everything was like feng shui. I don't know. And I was like, I'm going to do that because that will make my life. It will be good. So I go buy the bins at Home Goods or wherever. I put them in the refrigerator and I fill up this one bin with eggs. It's the eggs. I got it on the shelf. Well, I go take a shower, do something, and Eamon, my 8-year-old with autism, he cracks all the eggs in the fridge.
Yeah. Oh no!
Why wouldn't he?
Right?
Why wouldn't he?
Mother fricker! Why did this person show that? I mean, that I'm trying to follow her example. And she should have known that. What happened?
She was full of shit, Adrian. Didn't you figure it out?
Oh my gosh.
Pisses me off. I was trying to do the right thing.
Oh my goodness. That is like the home edit style, right? So like everything has its place, everything is color coordinated, everything is clear and you can see and like again, aesthetically pleasing, gorgeous, lovely, beautiful, but like in a house with little children, not always functional.
And she should put a disclaimer on this.
she really should have. She really should have, because it's like, honestly, well, that's just it. When you think about how autism works, it's all about sensory. Yeah. It's all about sensory and neat things. What does it feel like? Or what does it sound like? Or I think I'll go over here and kind of scoot and take a little, just do whatever. What are my...
I think I'm going to crack all these eggs. Yes.
Yeah. Why not?
That sounds about right. It tracks, friend. It tracks.
Yes. And that's actually, I used to work with a few children with autism in the school system. And, I'd love to get into the school system with you, by the way, in this episode, if you're okay with that. But, so with that being said, though, I remember one of the best things a school psychologist said to me was, Lindsey, when you meet a child with autism, when you meet one child with autism, you meet one child with autism.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So true.
And, yes. And I was just like, you know what? I really appreciate you saying that, because it helped me maintain perspective as well, and really understanding and staying present with the fact that every single child's needs present so differently and require such different attention and attendance to those needs and attunement to their emotional needs as well. And that's why, I mean, just kind of seeing what you navigate as well, having 4 children, I'd like to kind of go in the direction, if you're comfortable with discussing the fact that you had these 3 other children who would be identified as neurotypical, for lack of better words. And, what did that part look like in life in terms of like these beliefs of, my kids are always going to be this way, that way, or this way. Like I've kind of heard you talk on your blogs a bit about like, yeah, I never thought my kids would be the ones who did this or would create a scene or do this, that, and the other. And then how things kind of shifted once you had your 4th.
Yeah. That phrase, I never, that is burned.
Oh yeah. My children are never going to have TV time. My children are never going to eat junk food. My children, yes. Famous last words, friends.
My dad is apparently the only person that remembers all the things that I said, which bring up as my children are like glued to their phones. My children will never use technology. I mean, I was like, that was a long time. I've learned.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
He won't let you forget, huh?
Yeah. I have these 3 kids, and I think if I had just had them, I would be sitting. I probably wouldn't be with you today, because who knows what I would be doing. I really don't know. But I think I would have been giving myself a lot of credit, right? Like I have these children and they're all bright. They do well in school. They, navigate socially pretty well. And I would have given myself credit. And and I was raised, there were 2 children in my family, and we were pushed to work hard. School, you can be anything you want to be. Success is the culmination of hard work, not necessarily brilliance, but you work hard and you succeed. Now, along the way, my older brother died of cancer when he was 19 and I was 15. So I became this kind of default only child. And really all the more, and I've never really thought about this until I say it out loud, but intrinsic pressure to succeed, right? Because now all eyes are on me. And so I get a master's, I get a PhD. I mean, I had gotten offered a job by Jimmy Buffett to be his like tutor for his children for a year. And my dad was like, no.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I think he saw like my life down the tubes, somehow in Margaritaville. But anyway.
And this is coming from the woman that's never had a margarita.
What? Adrian.
What? It's just fun to be able to say that too, because it is true. And so success was this kind of, work hard. And I was married. I had a husband. He was an attorney. I was a Sunday school teacher. I was president of PTA. Like I had it
checked
all.
Off everything.
But I didn't have joy. And so when Amos came along, and he was a surprise, and he was about maybe 2. I knew when he was 10 days old, I said to myself, this child is different. And it wasn't until he was about 2 that it really kind of came to a head, and I wasn't sleeping. I just couldn't get it together. I was filled with of what is this path going to look like? And this kind of voice said to me, you used to write. And I thought I did. I used to write. And I really had stopped writing when my brother died. I kept journal with him, and I just put away my pen.
Yeah.
And so I discovered I had buried all this hurt and heartache with Adam's death, and I was keeping it together, right? Like I was happy and everything was going to be fine. And then Amos shows up and there wasn't any more room. I was
right. You were overflooded with grief.
I was. And so there's a writing, there was a lot of grieving, and, I can cry at the drop of a hat all the time. But I will say, after about a year into it, I thought, I have joy again. And I really thought joy wasn't mine anymore. I thought after Adam, that part of my life, I'll be happy. I'm not going to really have that.
Right.
And I do. And I realized that, and it came from that sharing. Now I can't remember the question, but anyway.
Oh, I don't know what the question was either. I told you we don't script this stuff. I don't know what I said either. Listen, I took my Adderall, but it doesn't mean that I'm actually remembering stuff. Lord have mercy. But no, I think that was it's a beautiful response, because I think what you're like, really, you're labeling, I think, something that is so important that will connect with so many other parents, though. And that is the fact that, again, while it is hard to articulate out loud, because I think sometimes acknowledging the grief also comes with a level of guilt, like feeling guilty for grieving. But truly, I think this is something where parents, especially new parents, if it's your first child as well, of having a child with autism, I mean, there's so many different emotions in the journey of having children, but especially when it comes with so many surprises, and there is that level of joy and grief. And, I've talked about this in earlier episodes that we've had, and that is that it is my belief that really stemmed from a lot of the stuff that I've read by Brene Brown, frankly, and just my interest in Buddhism and meditation stuff, is that you cannot experience joy in life without grief.
It's true.
I really believe that in order to understand the essence of joy, you have to have experienced suffering on the other side. I think about a spectrum that exists, so to speak. And in order to get to that other side, you have to know suffering so that you can experience and know what gratitude is in order to get to a place of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. And I'll circle us back around to what the original thought was, because Adrian, you did a wonderful job answering the question without, no, because it all pulls together. And I want to see this, and I want you all to see it, because you started the question with, how did your journey in motherhood change from your first 3 children to that 4th? And how did it change, even prior to having children, and the expectations of, my kids will never do this, my kids will never do that. And then, life happens and we all get a harsh reality check. But also, in bringing your writing back, you took your power back, and you took your ability to control the controllable, even though your plan didn't quite turn out like you expected. And I think that's a good message for the folks listening, because is everything going to work out exactly as you expect it to? Heck, no, never. If one thing does, pat yourself on the back, because that's great. But there's always something that you can do, something within your power to grab a little bit of that control and that sanity and that self-care back. And I think I love journaling, and I love that writing piece is what started you on your journey to sharing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear you say a little bit more about the joy piece. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how this presence of joy kind of took you by surprise, frankly, because it was kind of the antithesis of what you were expecting in those moments. Where did the joy come in with your youngest son? Can you comment a little bit about that? Because I feel that your loyal viewers who know you and see you all the time, and your family, they see it. I see it. But how about the people who are listening who haven't seen what you put out into the universe?
Well, I think I was raised as a Christian in the Presbyterian church, and this mantra of your joy doesn't come from your circumstances was something that was always sort of drilled into me. And I think it's really the ownership of what that means. And after my brother died, and then I have this little boy whose path is not what I wrote in my planner, right? I had this plan of what was going to happen. Right. I envisioned this 4th child who was going to, I really could see him running behind his big brothers and sister and keeping up with everything they were doing, and how fun that was going to be. And that has not happened. But his path has been it's the success, learning about what success really is, has been such a game changer for me. And I think for my husband and my 3 children, I remember when Amos drank out of a cup for the first time, and my older son got teary. I never noticed when those other children drank out of a cup. They were all talking in church before they were 1. So suddenly I was noticing these Thoreau's mosquito wings, and just how great it was. And it's not always good things. Sometimes it's just the acknowledgement of one day. So when he was super little, we would go to therapy at the hospital probably 10 times a week. And one morning we woke up, and unfortunately it's like 2 miles away, but I got up, the cat had peed, on something. I cleaned that up, get my coffee. I'm getting out of the car, getting Amos out of the car seat, and I go to drink my coffee, and I'd wash my hand, but my hand smelled like cat urine. And I puked like in the parking lot at the hospital. And I was like, this is disgusting. And this is so funny. This is funny. Like this is joy, right? And so when the box of Fruit Loops has been flung around, or the eggs are all cracked, I've learned to stop and say, this is okay. This is okay, because my joy be hinged on everything going the way it should be. It should. I guess I've learned that Amos is literally the most successful person I know. And I don't know what his future looks like. But I know he's successful.
Yeah.
And he's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
I am teary just from hearing you talk about this, because I feel that what children like Amos brings to the world is teaching us, right? Teaching us, the mom who has the PhD and master's degree and has all the things, teaches people about mindfulness in a way that cannot be learned in a book. It can truly only be learned in these life experiences, because children with autism, they're living in the here and now, always.
Right. Well, he lives about 3 days ahead if there's an airplane. We're flying out on Monday, and I mean, he is tickled to pieces. He doesn't even care where you go. He just like the whole activity. Like, I was like, born to a chic, so you had access. And you would have had a wonderful life. So
he just wants to get on the airplane and experience all the things. He's just
the anticipation of going on the airplane, wreaking havoc.
I just think that's awesome.
Oh yeah. But some is, I will say, when you were talking about that, the world view, and so I think one of my biggest struggles is we live in a tiny town, and we're pretty insulated. Like, I can go most everywhere with Amos. Everybody knows him. He might roll around on the floor at Mamacitas. I don't feel embarrassed.
Right.
But there's times that I go into the bigger world, and it's this argument that myself has with myself of how much do I let him be him, and how much do I have to get him to follow the world's rules, right? Because in reality, you have to do both. And it's hard as a mother of wanting acceptance for him, but then wanting him, it's really tricky. Or if he's, on a scooter in the air. And anyway, it's tricky of knowing where is that line? Where's the line? And I don't know it myself,
Does anyone?
No,
I mean,
no.
If you're out there, please call me.
Yes,
you can call me too. You can put me on that, because
I was gonna say, wait, add me too.
So we mentioned I have 2 children, and my children are very strong-minded. They're very opinionated. They're very strong.
They're your children. They're yours.
Right. I know.
Strong-willed parents produce strong-willed children. Good luck, girl.
Yeah. Well, it's a constant argument with myself. Like you said, I'm like, okay, like, as they're asserting their independence, and as they're forming their belief systems, and as they are learning what is and is not acceptable, like, how much of that do I try to conform to society to make their lives easier in the future? And how much of it do I just fan the flames and let them burn it down? Like, it's a daily thing, because you have not met Hazel at this point, Adrian, but someday you might. And she is an absolute firecracker, and she has no hesitation to question authority. She has no hesitation to demand something that she thinks is not fair in a situation. And sometimes she does it politely, sometimes she doesn't.
She's a justice seeker. That one is a justice seeker for sure.
But you're right. That daily battle of, how much of this do I, quote unquote, allow, which, if you've met my children, I allow a lot. And I won't apologize for that, because they are tiny humans and I think they're fantastic. But also, how much of it do I want to help set them up in the future so that it's not as hard? And I mean, it's tough, and it's tough as a parent in general, but I can only imagine the additional thoughts that go through your mind with a child with special needs.
Yeah. But with Amos, at least it's like, with my other children, I feel like it's not as, I remember when my daughter Blair, who sounds like Hazel is like her spirit animal, when Blair was about 5 or 6, and I realized what we were out in public, and she did something she would have done at home, and I was mortified. Right. So I was like, ooh, maybe it was cute when you were 2 and you're getting older, but my son Russell was at one day, saw a friend downtown, and she said, "Oh, how was your trip to Alaska?" My parents had taken us to Alaska, and his response was, "I don't really feel like talking right now."
Fair.
And yeah, that was nice. And my older son, "Mom, Russell was so rude to Miss Bean or whatever," and he apologized. And I said, you, you can always be polite, right? You can say, "It was nice, thank you." That is like so I think as they get older, it does get a little bit easier. What I find is really hard is when they're babies, you know what to do, right? You give the bottle, you nurse, you put them to bed, you change the diaper, like you got it. Your biggest, I get a white warmer or not? What kind of stroller do I need? Well, now they're teenagers, and they a party, and you say, "Well, are you going to invite so and so?" And they'll say, "Well, that person vapes, and I don't know if I really want to have them." And then you're saying, "Well, I don't know if they should have them." Right? I mean, I don't know the answers now myself to this part of parenting. And it's really, I think you're letting them be strong humans. I have seen that come full circle in a good way of they're able to make pretty good choices in general, and they feel they have a lot of confidence in their decisions. And fortunately, they've seemed good so far. I know they, won't always be, but it's been good to have, a backbone.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I often question, I'm like, is this the right thing? Because, if you look at social media and parenting books and all the things, you get all the information, but there aren't. Yes.
Parents, you just get a lot of
you get a lot of opinions and a lot.
Right.
Yes. Times change and everybody does things differently. And my goal is, and I think I've shared this on here before, but my goal is that when the children have to make hard decisions, they don't feel like they have to come to me, but they feel like they can come to me. Like they have the wherewithal to make a healthy decision for them. Like, your child said, "I don't feel like talking right now." Like that, while it may seem a little bit like off the cuff or a little bit abrupt, I think that's a wonderful statement, because yes, you're entitled to not want to talk about things with people. Like that is okay. No is a complete sentence.
Yes, that's right. If you do not feel like giving someone a hug, it is okay to not give that person a hug.
Yes.
So I know I am not a mother in this trio though, as we speak, but I am not a mother, but ironically, I am a therapist who works specifically with children and families to kind of navigate these things. So, I don't have all the answers either. And I'm not a parent. While I am a therapist and I've read lots of books, no, I don't have the answers either. And I think what it comes down to is the fact that every individual person has their own individual lived experiences, and everything needs to kind of be tailored to that individual and where they are. So while I did make the comment earlier, one child with autism is one child with autism, I do feel that on the whole, that's how it is with human beings, on a broad kind of sweeping brush here, that you can't kind of make assumptions about how every person's going to do their thing. I mean, your children, Adrian, are at this age, especially the teenagers, that is like peak time for identity development, really honing on it and on your core values, and kind of finding people that align with those core values. So
that is exactly what's been happening. And I didn't know that.
That's what I'm hearing you say. I mean, that's the therapist side of me speaking here. I mean, yes, that's what I'm hearing you say.
Oh, big time. That is, fortunately, it's working out well.
It sounds like that's what I mean. You've done a pretty damn good job momming them. So give yourself some credit, Mom.
Again, kudos to you. Like, job well done, friend.
Yeah, I think for real, hold space for that. Because that's the other thing, right? For Mother's Day, I feel like there shouldn't just be one day a year to celebrate what goes down every single day.
Right.
The stuff that moms have to navigate on the daily, whether it's, dealing with the social constructs of being a stay-at-home mom versus a working mom, or to breastfeed, to not breastfeed, to do this, to not do that. It's ridiculous how much y'all have to go through, frankly. And then trying to hold the house together and be a good spouse and all the things.
It's a wild ride for sure. And I mean, society doesn't help. And this is one of those situations that I think, Lindsey, you and I, again, we go after social media for shaming moms and for shaming people in general. And I think we can use this time to do something different. And we can say, you know what? Your life, your house may be in disarray. Today might not have gone well. Like a few weeks ago, I don't even remember when. My husband was out of town. I decided to go visit Lindsey and take the children. I decided to take the children bowling. And I had this whole image in my head of how bowling was going to go. The kids were going to have a blast. We were going to have fun. Like it was going to be a whole thing.
I said, Amber, you're brave, girl, doing that by yourself. Have fun.
And I'm like,
you're
why
brave.
am I brave? Like I'm going in public with my children now.
Exactly.
Mind you, I have anxiety about going in public with my children. So like Lindsey already knows this about me. So I was trying to step up and I'm like, no, bowling alley is a safe space. The door's shut. They can't get too far, that kind of thing. Not to mention my husband and I have been going to this bowling alley. He's been there since he was 5. I've been there since I was like 13. So everybody knows us. Well, the long story shorter or longer, I take them and I have this idea in my head and I'm like, this is going to be so great. We're going to have like fun with mom, because so often my husband gets to be the fun parent because that's just his role. And, it was a disaster. Like it was not a disaster, but it was a disaster if I compare it to my plan for the outing, because Hudson, my youngest, threw like 3 frames and he was like, I'm done. I'm ready to go. And like legit walked to the doors. I was like, no. You have to wait. Like you can't leave without me. And Hazel's like, well, I'm not ready to go. I still want to bowl. So then I'm navigating like, okay, I have one child that wants to leave. I have one child that's having the time of her life. Like, okay, so we're going to at least finish the game. And my son proceeded to like make it very apparent that he was not enjoying the fact that he did not get to leave exactly when he wanted to. And I'm like mortified because he's acting up, quote unquote, in the bowling alley. Making a scene, doing the things. And he's just like, he's being himself. And he would have acted like this at home. But my inside mom voice was like, oh my gosh, you're doing something terrible. You haven't parented him correctly. Like, and it rolls through the dialogue of, you're a terrible mom. Like you've done something wrong. This is your fault. And I was like, where's this voice coming from? Like this is nonsense. Like
society. That's where that shit's coming from. Society.
Right.
Trying to rob you of your joy.
Right. Now we ended up having fun. We ended up being able to go and see Lindsey afterward and having an adventure where my children were very loud.
See, you come to Miss Lindsey's house, makes everything better. That's okay.
But it just reminds me that like we all hear that voice and we all hear that societal pressure of you're doing it wrong. So I just.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to switch gears for a bit. I really want to switch gears to kind of focus on kind of the other piece of what we see Adrian do with her blog, which is Adrian, you do more than just raise awareness about autism. And I think it's important for the people who have not heard of you, who should get to know you. You raise awareness about important issues across the board, whether it be world events or you've touched a lot on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, which I don't believe we should call a conflict anymore, but so much as a freaking genocide.
Right.
But you've touched a lot on that, and in a very educational manner. You've really raised tremendous levels of awareness around different school boards and school districts, the entire Emily Pennington case that took place in Billings, Montana, which, that whole thing was a complete disaster. There's so many different pieces and parts that you bring to light to busy moms and people all over who follow your followers that maybe don't have time to get up to speed with all the things that are going on, but then hopping on, seeing that you're live, you give a quick rundown of what's going on. It's funny because you kind of turn into like the living room news anchor. But
David, I love that.
Adrian.
Yes. David, there you go. And that's the thing is that, so for it to be called Tales of Educated Debutante, you said that you've got a master's and a PhD. And I'd love to know, what are your master's and PhD in? What did you study? Because it's very clear you're incredibly bright. What did you study?
Well, I don't know if I'm that smart. I I never broke 1,000 on the SAT. So I always say
I didn't either.
I mean, damn it. It's a real shame.
I don't test that way.
I think I was just lazy back then. I got, now if I went to college, I'd probably do great. I have a master's degree in education. I did a 1-year master's program instead of Jimmy Buffett.
Are you kidding me? That's what you chose over Jimmy Buffett? I hope he understands this.
It was a directive, and in early intervention, and then with a specialty in inclusion, funny enough, and considering my life now. And then I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So I applied for a PhD program. So I was at Chapel Hill for my master's and NC State for my PhD. And it's in educational research and policy analysis. And
what?
So that was a good, so I'm particularly, I love all things education. I love policy. I just like it. So when I had started writing early on, I was like, this is going to be great. Actually, I'm going to write about education. Well, it tanked. I mean, ain't nobody wants to hear about education. They want to hear about,
your
silly
Fruit Loops. They want to hear about your Fruit Loops spilling.
So I had to really build up an audience to get to do some of those things, because there are things that I write about that, I mean, if I write about politics, I lose followers. If I, people not touching those subjects, well, it's a financial decision, right? Because they think that I'm going to lose followers. That means I make less ever. But I'm willing, or I'm unwilling to do that.
You're unwilling to compromise your value system. See, this is where your kids get it from.
I love it.
I feel now there are times that I don't say anything, but it is because I genuinely don't know how I feel about it. And I'll give you an example.
That's okay. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. That's okay.
But I want to be informed if I speak, right? And so if I speak, it's because I don't feel informed. And one of the biggest, most recent example has been the transgender swimmer.
That's right. That's right.
The NCAA tournament. And it's unfortunate because I've spent a ton of time really reading everything I could find for and against, and I still don't know how I feel. And so I do have a subscriber group, and we do delve into some topics like that. It's a little safer, smaller space.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I want to hear what people have to say too. I'm not the expert. So I do try to, if I come out with a position on something, I feel pretty strongly that it's the right.
You stand in it, and you stand in it boldly. And I think that what is powerful about that is that you end up speaking for vulnerable populations who are not having their voices heard, which is frankly what this podcast with a purpose is all about. Frankly, that's what the Fox is all about, is giving rise to silenced voices. And that's honestly a beautiful segue to frankly, the Emily Pennington situation that took place in Billings, which has been a mess. Would you mind sharing with our listeners, just because I think, listen, I understand there's lots of different caveats and tidbits or what have you, but just for our listeners' sake, for them to use this as an example to just shed light on how small little towns, frankly, and just a couple people who are key decision makers can absolutely make sweeping changes or decisions that affect people's lives. This is where I feel like people who say and minimize, like they don't really care about their local politics because it's the federal government that rules everything. Let this case highlight why it's so important to know what is going on in your community. Do you mind sharing that case with us, Adrian?
I don't. And I would say also, I think as the more and more I've delved into topics like this, the more I've realized how it is so important that we know politics, and that we know politicians, and that we know. I
agree.
Who we know.
Listen, this is like I am super passionate about this. So the fact that you have your PhD studying this stuff, I'm like, well, no wonder, girl, this is your purpose right here. Like you.
But I wasn't always that way. And so
that's okay. You grew into it.
I've come to this point from seeing, like, holy cow, I used to think of politicians as being kind of on pedestals. And the more I get to know them, I think, it's particularly North Carolina, you make $13,000 a year. And I think, well, that's all on purpose, because they don't want anybody educated to run for those jobs because they can't afford to, right? Who can afford to make $13,000 a year? So that's really the game plan, to
The
keep
people who work with lobbyists. those
right.
those people. Those people too.
Yeah. Well, don't they make a lot? The lobbyists make a lot, right?
Yeah, depending on what, if I mean,
It's the
you're right.
Senate.
The local people, yes, you're right. Local people, they don't get paid too much, but the people, who might get some cash from the lobbyists, the public
Mhm.
money is pretty low, but then all of a sudden they're going home to their mansion, but that's okay.
Right. But you don't see some amazing teacher running for Senate,
Right.
in the sense that a teacher would run for Senate, but a teacher needs her salary or his salary,
Mhm.
work for $13,000 a year.
Right.
Not going to happen. So anyway, so with Emily Pennington, young lady in Billings, Montana, pretty small town. And you go back to 1975, before 1975, if you had a disability, you were not legally allowed to go to public school in the country. So some schools, some states did allow children with disabilities to come, but legally you did not have to. So what would happen is, if you had an AMIS, or oftentimes a child with, let's say, Down syndrome, and it was time to go to kindergarten, you're not going to kindergarten. And so children had been home with their families, and then their option was, you're going to go live in this institution during the week, maybe all the time, and that's where you're going to get your education. So I think we have this false sense that people had babies with disabilities and they put them in institutions. It's not really what happened. It was more, and I've heard from the siblings oftentimes of these children, of the mothers and fathers that were just destroyed to drop their 5-year-olds off in institutions, but they wanted them to have the best, right? And that was all they had.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in 1974, I guess, not 5. Well, the federal law says we will serve children with disabilities from ages 3 to 21. Up until a month ago, I thought everybody serves from 3 to 21.
So I did too. Just to insert little disclaimer here,
Okay.
as someone who has worked on a lot of different, or attended a lot of IEP meetings, 504 meetings, worked with people in the schools, advocated for my families and kids in schools, I also thought this until I saw what you were sharing, and I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to let you know you're not alone in that. I also was just like blown away.
Yeah.
I got a phone call from a girl, my big sister, where I went to high school, who is like the head attorney for the General Assembly in Georgia. And she's like, no, they have to do this. It's illegal. I was like, no, it's not.
Oh, wait. Can you share what the issue is, though? Because our listeners still haven't heard what the issue is.
So the law says, I wish I had it in front of me. The law says you are going to serve children ages 3 to 21. But then there's a caveat. There is, unless your state doesn't have a law that you will do that.
AKA the state can trump the federal law.
So the state exemption is written into the federal law.
That's right.
Which is very unusual, I'm told.
Highly unusual.
So Montana is the only state that stopped serving children with disabilities at age 19. North Carolina is 21, just for record. Most states are. So Emily Pennington, junior in high school, young lady with Down syndrome, 4th child, and she's really just a model of inclusion. Her family has worked tirelessly to make sure that she's mainstream. She's trot out, made the cheerleading squad, made the basketball team. I mean, she is killing it. I mean, she's just amazing, super social, and she's a junior in high school. And the school system has always said to her family, she's going to have to quit school because she's going to be turning 19 in July. So she's not going to have the senior year. And her mother said, well, I think we're going to have to change the law by then. I'm not going to worry about it.
Right. So just to rehash that, right? So we're talking about, this is a family where a 19-year-old a girl that will be 19 entering her senior year is told, hey, you've done all this schooling up until junior year, and now we're just not going to let you finish your senior year, and you are not allowed to graduate.
You can graduate,
but
but you're not going to have your senior year.
Right.
Which
it's
me so condescending, right? Because it's
that's why I'm like, it's not really graduating. I mean, you're depriving of this girl. Yeah, here's a traumatic incident, and then we're going to give you graduation. Okay, right. Thanks.
Right. We're going to not treat you like we would a typical teenage girl who graduation. Senior year is huge with every teenage girl on the planet, but we're going to pretend that Emily's just not aware of those things. Right. So Montana changed the law 2 years ago and said, if you want districts, there's a lot of local control in Montana, districts that want to continue to serve these children, we will fund them. And so that passed in July, and Billings was brought to Billings' attention by the family. No response.
Right.
Response. And the mother put up a Facebook post, and one of my followers happened to send it to me. And it was immediately clear. You know, a lot of times you might say, well, there's a lot more behind the scenes work of what I do than just writing a story. Oftentimes we can solve problems and it never makes it to my blog. You know, we can make a phone call. I can encourage a parent, hey, here's who you should talk to.
Right.
Just be like, oh, we're sorry, we're wrong. Well, not
no. These people weren't taking any sense of social responsibility. They were being pretty indignant, if you will.
Yes. And so I talked to Emily's mom pretty quickly, shared a story, did a video, and it was maybe a Friday, and it was real quiet that weekend. And I was like, damn, these people are they are really hard asses. Well, they couldn't take it anymore. Monday morning, they just poof. The house of cards fell down. They're like, we're having meetings, you know, they're calling me like, people are threatening us. I'm like, you know, you're on the school board. Yeah. This is your job. You know, I'm sorry that your feelings are hurt, but you have responsibility too, not just us. Right. But if you want to run for office, get your big girl pants on, you know.
For sure. That's right. For sure. That's right.
So
there's a social responsibility stepping into these roles. So if you can't do your part, then clearly you need to step off.
Right. And down to it's money, and it's money is probably a lot of it, and our attitude towards people with disabilities. You know, we love to be inclusive, and we want everybody to, you know, everybody wants to support.
Right. That's just the social media version, though, Adrian. It's not true. That's just until
it's inconvenient, right? We want to support, we want to be inclusive until it's inconvenient.
If that means we get your vote, we're going to include you. But then as soon as it's time to discuss funding, we're going to shift gears a little bit behind the scenes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is going to be the best video. You've just given me the best topic. Social media for disabilities.
Yes. Oh, good. I can't wait to hear it.
Please tag us in that. I can't wait to hear it too.
That I think about, because it's true. And it's like when rubber meets the road, you know, and you're expecting a baby with Down syndrome, the majority of them are aborted. And it's because there's this feeling of you're lesser than, you know, or Iceland says we've eradicated Down syndrome. And I think if we really shared the truth of the disability, it'd be like, if you found out you were having Michael Jordan, you wouldn't be thinking, well, should I not continue with this pregnancy?
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, abortion laws have now changed all over the United States, or are actively changing. So I know, not to get into it, but I'm just saying it's just another freaking part of the politics.
And I really don't venture into abortion.
No. I
feel like it's so tricky for me personally, but I do look at research, and the research says we are aborting children with disabilities.
Yes.
Yet, and we're inclusive. But we can't be, because the research shows opposite, you know?
And mirrors.
Yeah. and I remember when Amos has a genetic disorder, and we thought he had one, and the first one that they had said that they thought it was is inherited on the female genes. And it ended up not being that. But at the time, this question was, if it went from my mother to me to Blair, what would Blair's chance be of having a child with a disability, an Amos? Mm-hmm. I said to her, and she was pretty little, like Hazel's age. I said, because I just couldn't help myself. I said, how would you feel if you were going to have a baby and you were going to have an Amos, a baby just like Amos? And I mean, I held my breath, and she said, I would be so excited because I love him. And, even at the time, she knows what life is like with Amos. She's, but my children know as well as anybody what it's like to have a sibling with a disability. I mean, they live it. They know when stuff's or we have to leave a restaurant, or, they live it. So for her to just have this different kind of acceptance where she gets the genetic test and she says, oh, well, it's going to be different, but it's okay. I didn't have that perspective.
But look at you being a change maker and a cycle breaker.
Well, I don't know why I didn't. I probably wasn't listening. But I think families do tend to, there's something about with your typical children, you feel like you can complain about them and you're not like, you shouldn't feel guilty. Where with a child with a disability, I try to complain about Amos because I want to normalize that it doesn't have anything to do with love for him.
Right.
The same complain about my 18-year-old son, I can complain about my 8-year-old son.
That's right. That's
right. It's that voice inside saying, well, if you do that, so it's kind of turning that off, I think.
Yes. And it's hard to do because, again, I think there's a lot of stigma and shame and guilt and all these other pieces that come from so many different directions, as well as our social constructs that of what we're supposed to do that screws it all up for all of us. So
other people's opinions, man.
Yeah, I guess. But I do want to, I just want to circle back really quickly. Is there any way you can kind of give us just a quickie update on kind of what happened with that Emily Pennington case in terms of, because you created a lot of noise, girl. You got a lot of people up there rallying for this girl to get her senior year. So, of note for our listeners, we're not recording this on the same date that we're airing it. So this is the most up-to-date information that we have for the now. So what is the most up-to-date?
There was a special meeting. There will be another meeting pretty soon for the official vote. But the meeting, I believe, Emily will have her senior year. And Billings, if anything, I was pretty impressed. The school board said, we are not going to just do through age 19. We would like to add it to 21. And they sort of made the exception rule wider than the state law necessitates. That's a word. Because I was thinking like you could have a child that was in a car accident and had to miss a year of school, or all sorts of things could happen. So I was pretty impressed with that thought. So I think Emily will have her senior year, and because of her, many other students will as well. And hopefully the state of Montana and the other districts, it'll give parents some knowledge about how to go about saying, hey, Billings is doing it. We'd like to.
That's right.
Amazing.
So because of you, though, and this is where I don't want to minimize credit, though, is that I'm not saying because this took a village. I'm not trying to take away from that. But I keep wanting to say, I feel like you got to give yourself credit where credit is due. And I feel like this is a typical mom thing of where we kind of want to deflect certain pieces, but like you deserve some credit in this because you did play a part in getting people interested in something that maybe they didn't know about before. You got people to sign petitions that maybe they didn't even know existed. Maybe they didn't know why it was important. And because it wasn't happening in their backyard, they didn't really care. But because you're a relatable person and because you are authentic in your vlogs, people connect with that and people can see the human experience in that way and say, wow, if this is happening through this person who is so human to me that I can connect with and identify with, then this could happen to my family or my whatever. And so I feel like there was a sense that you had a sense of agency in this, as well as all of the other people in Montana and so forth. But I think that goes to show the beauty and power behind certain elements of influencers that do
Yes.
use social media for the greater good.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you. I do agree. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I do have this platform that I've worked really hard to build. And if I'm gonna, I want it to be for good. You know, I'm not gonna share the messed up Fruit Loops. I don't know if that's really helping anybody, but it matters. It matters to me. You know, it matters to me, and I see my children being invested in it. And, you know, Blair will say, well, Emily's petition is up to maybe 175,000 signatures. I checked this morning, and, you know, they're asking, or my children are on social media, which is a whole nother podcast. But
Indeed, you're welcome to come back.
Yes.
Really allowed to talk about, but, you know, they're liking, following, and I know their friends are seeing it, you know, and so what are those children learning? And, you know, there are really good humans on this planet.
Yes, there are.
There are people are inherently good, and people need something to stand behind. And I think sometimes everything is so polarizing that it's like, it's okay to just say, hey, here's a cause. And what I feel is that my people are like, oh my gosh, like they're so thankful to know about it, just like I am, that we want to look for ways for people to help and make the world better.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We have the same mission as you do in that sense.
Right.
I mean, that's truly what our mission is, even within the podcast, is hoping that, you know, people, and by the way, just shout out to anyone who does have a story they want to share with us, or these kind of positions where they are using their voice for the greater good to create change. Like, that's what we're all about in terms of having people like yourself come on to share, because it does make a difference. And so many people think about systemic change being something that must come from the top. And I feel like we really need to deconstruct that and kind of do away with that old way of thinking, because I believe that's exactly what you are proving, is that it doesn't have to come from the top. It comes from the powers with the people.
Yeah, y'all. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're a perfect example. It can happen in lots of different ways and it is the beauty of social media. And I kind of lump podcast into social media. I guess they're not.
I mean, that's fine.
There are people that are kind of like, I don't do social media, or I don't do, you know, I never say never, but I'm like, you know, you have to look at
not anymore.
The real benefits. You can use everything to good. You know?
Absolutely.
You're so honestly, right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lindsey.
It's okay, Amber. I just know that we're wrapping up. So go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was actually just going to say we've covered so many amazing topics. I took a ton of notes. Adrian, I love the way that you share things. I love the way your eyes light up and the way that I can like see and feel the passion on you. Obviously, the folks listening to us and not watching on YouTube can't see that. So highly recommend you folks find us on YouTube, subscribe, and watch the videos, because I can see how your heart lights up when you start talking about these things. And when I see the change you are manifesting in not only just your immediate community, but the communities far and around you. So I thank you for that. And I thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had anything else. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was my pleasure. My pleasure.
We'd like to give you a little, just a minute for a quick plug. If you would like to let people know who are not familiar with how to follow you, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, or a website, please let our listeners know. How do they find you?
So you just type in Tales of an Educated Debutante, Facebook, Instagram. I don't really understand Twitter. I'm trying. I have it's just the sky on my.
It's okay, girl. It's okay. It's all right. You're not missing out on too much right now, at least not in this world of it's a lot of banter, a lot of polarizing banter going on right now over there.
So tiring. It's so
Uh,
So please do. I'm always thankful to have new folks and to learn just as much as.
Likewise. And please follow us, What the Fox Podcast, on Instagram, on Facebook as well. We do have we have our link tree in the show notes. So just go there and see all the social media stuff. Because like
all the Snapfish and all
yes,
that.
I know. I keep calling Snapchat Snapfish. It's ridiculous.
My favorite thing.
Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. It has been a true pleasure spending time with y'all today. I look forward to another episode in the future. I think we've uncovered lots of topics that we can go on to discuss, but just great spending time with y'all.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
See you next Tuesday.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.